It's Friday, which means it's time for another exciting episode of Ask Us Anything on the Goggler Podcast. Let's kick things off with a question from Brandon Ho Sheng Ven, who asks, which TV series do you think is the biggest Emmy snub in Emmy's history, and why? There are too many, Brandon. Just so many. I don't even know where to begin. BoJack Horseman, The Wire.
The Wire.
Better Call Saul. Not
Better
a
Call Saul not win
single
anything?
Emmy. Not a single Emmy. Also, in its final season, it was up against Succession, which is unfortunate. But still, I think they should have just given it to Better Call Saul in that final season because that is a great show. Never won a single Emmy.
Also, Hannibal didn't win anything.
Oh,
which was also
really?
very surprising. It only got one nomination for Outstanding Special Visual Effects, but didn't win.
That's insane.
That's insane. Hugh Dancy, Mads Mikkelsen, fucking insane.
The other massive oversight, although there is still time to correct it, It's Always Sunny has never won a freaking Emmy in what? It's almost running for 2 decades now, and it still hasn't won a single Emmy. And that's ridiculous because it is one of the funniest things on TV.
I'm surprised he didn't win anything for that season when Rob McElhenney's character finds out he's gay.
Oh, yes.
That was a fantastic season of television. It was a fantastic season of comedic television that wasn't about the comedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there are loads, man. I mean, The Good Place has never won an Emmy, which is one of the greatest things on TV. Parks and Rec never won an Emmy. A lot of people have spoken about this, but I think there is a massive issue with The Bear being in the comedy category because I think comedy as an art is never acknowledged in the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Not at the Oscars. And on television with the Emmys, there is an opportunity to do that. And I don't care what arguments you make. The Bear is not funny.
Yeah.
There are
not.
comedic moments. And don't get us wrong. Bahir and I are massive fans of the show. We think it's great. But it should be up against Shogun and Succession. It should be in the best drama category. There is nothing about The Bear that is ha-ha funny in any way. It is just trauma.
I still don't know why it's in the comedy category.
It's because of that stupid ruling, dude. I think they're finally changing it this year because I think the Emmys are finally acknowledging the noise around it. But it's that stupid 30-minute thing.
Yeah, it's a 30-minute thing.
Because in the past, everything was categorized into 30 minutes and below is a sitcom, and then 45 minutes is a drama. And they haven't broken out of that. Although they have with some things in streaming, but at the same time, it's just a big shit show lah. But I think they're finally reacting to that. So maybe season 3 of The Bear next year might get nominated in the drama category.
Look, I love The Bear, but I am completely on Hannah Einbinder's mother's side when she tweeted a shitstorm about how Hacks won over The Bear. I'm like, no, you're right. You're completely, absolutely right.
Hacks is one of the funniest things on TV.
Hacks is fucking fantastic. And that should be winning a comedy. I still think Dave should be winning stuff. Also, I'm sorry, I just looked this up. Dancing with the Stars have got 21 fucking Emmys?
It's very easy lah with the non-scripted stuff. Also, there's very little competition, like very little real competition, which is why John Oliver just wins every single year.
Especially now with Letterman not really on TVs anymore. Jon Stewart's kind of yes, kind of no. John Oliver feels like the best of the late night magazine style talk show stuff. Yeah.
And Jon Stewart came back and then he won this year. So hey, there you go. There's very little competition in the non-scripted stuff. And I think that's why Dancing with the Stars or whatever has, 500 Emmys. There you go.
124 nominations.
Jesus Christ.
Bullshit.
All right.
At Kailash Laxman asks, I recently have been on a bit of a Stephen King horror marathon for movie adaptations. The Shining and Cujo still hold up. Which do you think have been the best adaptations and which would you like to be adapted?
Ooh.
I don't know. I'm sure I've seen a lot of Stephen King's, but I can't.
To be fair, there's very few of his novels that haven't been adapted into TV or movies. Like Stephen King is just out there. But favorite adaptations? Ooh. I really like The Mist.
Oh.
I know some people didn't. I really fucking love The Green Mile. I think that's one of his best. Shawshank is his. based on a Stephen King short story, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Okay, so I guess I have seen.
You've seen a lot, lah, dude.
I have seen a lot. Okay, I'm
You've
just looking
seen
through a
Doctor
list now.
Sleep. Have you seen 11/22/63 about the time travel Kennedy
Yeah.
assassination thing?
Yep, I enjoyed that.
That was good.
Okay, so the fact that I've seen more than I thought I did, I will still go back to Shining. I love The Shining. It could be a Stanley Kubrick thing. It could be a Jack Nicholson's Most thing. I loved that it was a horror that leaned more on the thriller side. Like, if you were not really paying attention, it's just a story about a guy going crazy. But if you are watching the director's cut and you see that weird bear guy costume and the naked old lady in the bathtub and the strange ghost / not ghost bartender,
Elevators of blood,
the twins. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, when I think of Stephen King, the only thing I want to go back to and watch is The Shining. Like, I love it. I love Shawshank. I love Stand By Me, and all those are fantastic. But when I want to watch Stephen King movie, I always reach for The Shining.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Shining is fantastic. I love both versions of it. I grew up watching the first version and was terrified. And then I thought the remakes were really solid. The Green Mile is great yet again. Carrie is very good. But the thing I want to see made of his and made properly, because it was fucked up the first time, the Gunslinger novels, which are really cool. But then that weird Idris Elba movie, which was like a pilot to a TV show, but then put in theaters. And then, I want to see a really good Dark Tower adaptation. I think it'll make for a great series. Someone needs to bite the bullet and do it.
Are we excited for The Life of Chuck?
Very excited for The Life of Chuck, actually.
Okay.
That trailer looks fantastic. I want to go to Toronto just to watch that fucking movie. He's one of my favorite authors. I love his books, and I don't think you can go wrong picking up any one of them. Like, if someone comes to me and goes, hey, where should I start reading Stephen King? I'm like, fuck it, just start wherever. Some are only 120 pages, some are 1,000 pages, whatever suits your fancy. But as a storyteller, as a writer, he is so engaging and accessible. None of it feels dense. Even the fucking Stand, which is huge, or Under the Dome, which is massive. Like, the way he writes characters and plots, all of it just really moves, lah. And I think that's why he's so adaptable for Hollywood, and that's why they love his stuff so much. At Kabir Singh asks, do you guys think there is a high chance of Megalopolis releasing in Malaysia on its scheduled release date, or even any time after that, and also in IMAX?
I think there is a next to zero chance Megalopolis is showing up in Malaysia.
Bahir is right. Next to zero chance that a long, talky Francis Ford Coppola experiment is showing up in Malaysian cinemas. It is, however, opening at the end of this month in Singapore. So if you fancy a road trip, that might be the only way for you to catch it on the big screen. I am seriously tempted because I'm hearing some crazy batshit things about this film, and I really want to watch it on the big screen. Like, I don't want to watch it on my TV. I think it's going to be one of those fucked up, weird experiences because even Aubrey Plaza's character's name sounds stupid as shit. And I'm just like, come on.
Let's qualify this a little bit, Kabir Singh, for you. We were in deep conversations with the distributor for Oppenheimer. The distributors had no faith in Oppenheimer doing any money in Malaysia. I wouldn't say they would go as so far as to say they weren't going to bring it in because they had to, but they really had no faith in it. They didn't want to spend any money on it. They didn't want to push it because to them, it was never going to make money because it's a talking black and white Chris Nolan movie about a guy who made a bomb. I don't think Megalopolis has got a big international distributor. I think they've got some small local indie distributors so far in the US and in the UK and maybe some parts of Europe. So yeah, there is a snowball's chance in hell that Megalopolis is showing up in Malaysia.
Sorry. We would be surprised though. We would eat our shoes if it shows up.
I wouldn't eat my shoe. I would be very thrilled. I would probably be one of the first people to buy tickets, but I will not be eating my shoe.
Oh, it sounds nuts though.
It sounds crazy.
Sounds nuts.
Ed Tapauzi asks, how do you guys think Shogun will progress in season 2? I mean, talk about a perfectly written series. How could they possibly top that? I have thoughts. I've thought about this for a while.
Yeah.
The book is fantastic. I think if you loved Shogun, the TV show, you should pick up the book, because just like the book, the TV series never actually goes into this massive war that they're talking about. So I think season 2 will have to be about that war, the war that season 1 was building up on, right? This political intrigue, this division of powers within the shogunate at the time. I think season 2 has to be about that.
So Clavel wrote a whole bunch of books in his Asian saga, and Taipan is set like 250 years after Shogun. So there's a lot of intervening years between then, and Toranaga was a real person. So there is history to build off there as well. And so in the hands of good writers, I think they can channel Clavel's voice and tell the story of what happens next. Because even in the novel, when Shogun ends, sure, it ends, but there's still so much more of these lives that we don't get to see or hear about. And I think a season 2 can do that very, very well. And let's be fair, what I enjoyed about Shogun so much was that they took the novel, they adapted it, and they updated it in a great way. Which is why I have a lot more faith in these writers than, say, the writers of Game of Thrones or Umbrella Academy, who completely lose their way when they don't have a source material to base their show on. Because even with this, there were enough changes made. They weren't slavish adaptations, and there were enough changes made to kind of update the series for our modern sensibilities without losing what it actually is. And I think a season 2, if it follows the real history of Toranaga and what happened and that war and all of that stuff, there's a lot there. And I think, yeah, if they maintain these standards, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
We got another question on Shogun from @Travesty. Are you guys on Team Mariko or Team Fuji? I'm on Team Fuji. Such elegance. I am Team Mariko.
Yeah, I don't even know how to answer this question.
It's just a character that I prefer. I think she's absolutely fantastic. She can fight. She can translate. She's a diplomat. She kicks ass. Mariko's everything.
I can also see that Fuji will end up being someone like Mariko.
Yes.
She's got the same kind of fire. She's got the same kind of intelligence. She's got the same kind of ability to read people. Mariko is just further along. I feel like there's nothing Fuji can't do. I still haven't answered the question, so that's fine. Iman Bahari asks, leeching off of last week's question, would you rather be a Marvel character or a DC character?
I think I have an answer for this.
Okay.
I think I'd rather be a Marvel character. So the Marvel comics, as you all know, have always been a lot more grounded in some ways, at least with their mainstream superheroes, right? That was the whole idea of what made Spider-Man so great. He was a regular Joe, he had powers, but he also had real problems. And because those characters feel a lot more relatable, I think it's easier for me to kind of superimpose myself on them. In contrast to, say, DC's big three, billionaire vigilante, alien from another planet, and princess from an island with no men. I mean, very hard to like connect in some ways, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a Marvel character might be easier. And so I would go with Marvel. That's the logical answer, but of course I want to be fucking Batman.
Yeah, I guess, like, for me, in my comic book reading career, I've found that I like reading more of the Marvel stuff because they tend to be deeper in some way. Like, I'm reading a lot of Batman now, but whenever I get a new issue of Daredevil, Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, I just want to go back to that. Like, the current run of Batman, Chip Zdarsky's Batman, ironically, is doing a lot of interesting things. You know, like his literal inner voice coming out and being physical in a robot. Like, that's cool, but never do I actually have Batman argue about the values of Catholicism in the life of a superhero the way Daredevil does, right?
Yeah.
His inner turmoil with regards to God and religion and fighting the literal devil, that makes it more of an interesting character to read for me. So based off of that, I say I'd rather be a DC character. It's just because it's easier. Not so much emotional baggage.
We got a great final question from Matt, who asks, throughout the years, have you noticed if your reviews trend towards the mainstream or are getting increasingly contrarian?
Do you have an answer to this?
I guess a little bit of setup before we answer the question. There are two things that we do, or that you should know about it. Before we review anything, we don't read any of the other reviews because we don't want our own reviews or our own views to be kind of tainted by it. Also, a lot of the time, we cannot read other reviews because we're under strict embargo, so there are no other reviews to read because we get access to the TV shows or the movies ahead of time. And we've always practiced that because we felt it's the most honest way to share our opinion. The second thing you need to know about us is that we are very confident in our own opinions, lah. If that wasn't apparent already. And I think that may be either a good character trait or a serious character flaw. But I think whatever the case is, it's very good if you're a film and television critic or a critic of any sort.
Yeah.
That said, when you sent us this question, I just went back and started looking through some of the stuff that we'd been doing. And I have to say, I don't think we're either. Like, there are some things that we trend towards the mainstream because they're objectively good. Like, The Wild Robot, for example, has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes because all of the reviewers and all of the critics loved it, but it's an objectively great film. And so that tends to happen. However, we didn't give She-Hulk a high rating because we wanted to be contrarian. We watched that show early. We got a whole bunch of episodes before the show launched, and we genuinely had a fantastic time with that show. We found it funny, we found it amusing, we found it in line with the tone of the comics that it was based on, and we genuinely liked it. And I don't think the mainstream or the contrarian opinion actually tends to influence what we do. But at the same time, I haven't done a database comparing our reviews with all of the other reviews out there to see whether we're trending in any particular direction. But as I look through it, it doesn't feel like we're either. It just feels like we like what we like.
So I've noticed over the years that I don't know if this means I'm being contrarian, but I'm getting more vocal about the things I like that other people don't. I'm not liking it because they don't. I'm just getting louder because they don't, right? Like, my love for Rings of Power, I will fight you for it because I think it's fantastic. And I think it's been getting a bad rap. Same with The Acolyte. I loved The Acolyte. I thought it had so much promise, and I'm annoyed at people who hated it because of reasons. It wouldn't have good reasons. They couldn't make an argument for anything. So if that makes me a contrarian, that's fine. But I feel like my contrarian views is not just for argument's sake. The volume of my contrarian view is based on the fact that I love that thing so much.
To answer your question, Matt, we like what we like. And I don't think we've really noticed a trend in either direction. I have to say, though, there are some websites that I read, IndieWire in particular, of late, have been incredibly contrarian in their views.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's just them being contrarian for the sake of it, or if their critic is just like that, in that has a very strong like of a specific kind of thing and dislikes everything else. And that's happened in the past. There have been a whole bunch of some of the greatest critics in the world who have had no time for science fiction or comedy or the blockbuster. Pauline Kael famously hated The Sound of Music. She thought it was a terrible movie. But I'm not sure if that's what's happening today. And it's a lot harder to read when that's happening today because so many of these sites are looking for the clicks and are looking for the hits. And so it's a lot harder to figure out what their objectives are.
We've got a host of contributors for us that we have no instructions for them other than write your review in English, right? We're not saying, oh, if you don't like a thing, write me for it. I think our mentality is really, do you feel strongly about something and do you want to write about it? Then go ahead. If two people have opposing views, invariably we try and get them both to write because then we have both opinions on our website. We've done it before. We've had it on our site where you might hate something and I might like it, or Ian might like something and somebody else might not. And I think that that's valuable for a brand. You can't just have one view, especially if it's a negative view, because you don't want to come off as Like you said, Matt, contrarian brand.
But thank you for the question, Matt, because it really got me thinking, and I'm going to look into it a little bit. I'm going to scroll through all of our reviews and see where we stand in contrast to everyone else. I think it might provide some very interesting insights even into our process.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for your questions. That wraps up another exciting episode of Ask Us Anything on the Goggler Podcast. Reach out with more. You know how to do it. Goggler MY, all of our social media feeds. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.